Friends, lean in for a moment. What I'm about to share. This isn't something polished or pretty. This is the kind of truth that comes out when the lights are off, the tears are fresh, and your spirit is raw. I didn't rehearse this. I didn't read it in some dusty book or learn it in a university hallway. No, this was carved into me through fire. Through encounters I still can't fully explain. Now listen close. When folks toss around nicknames like Nelly the Narcissist, don't get caught up in the sound of it. That's just the mask, the costume. What we're really talking about is the force hiding underneath. A force that smiles with honey on its lips and poison in its eyes. I once shared my story, trembling but bold. I hit publish, on a video that poured my pain into the world, not because I wanted attention. God knows that's the last thing I needed, but because I couldn't carry it alone anymore. I had stood in the storm, a face-to-face with something cold, something not entirely of this world, and it wrapped itself around my joy, my peace, my identity, tight as a snake, and I barely escaped. For a moment, I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the only one. That's how these things work, isn't it? The narcissist doesn't just break you, they isolate you. You scream into a dark room and no one answers back, until, one by one, the whispers begin. And two. That was me. I thought I was the only one. And suddenly, you realize, you're not alone. You've been part of a hidden army all along. Wounded warriors, still breathing, still standing, carrying invisible scars from a battle most don't even know exists. See, the narcissist doesn't just bruise the ego. This isn't about rudeness or bad manners. This is about invasion, a spiritual hijacking. You can sit across from them, watching their mouth form perfect words, but what you feel in your gut, that deep ache, that chill down your spine, that's the real sermon. There's a darkness that walks with the narcissist, like a shadow that feeds on light. And when they enter your life, they don't just take up space. They rearrange the walls of your soul. And sometimes when you look them in the eyes, that something inside you whispers, that's not human, that's not just brokenness, that's something else. Call it what you want. Disorder, trauma, dysfunction. But there's a deeper current here, one that psychologists can't always measure. This is spiritual warfare, and it's not fought with fists or fury, it's fought in silence, in choices, in the quiet power of saying, "Thou knew more." And I didn't learn that from a pulpit. I learned it when I saw something in the narcissist's gaze that didn't belong to the earth. It wasn't sadness. It was cold, calculating emptiness. And it wanted to smother the light in me. That light that still burns in you. Friend, if you've ever felt that chill, if you've ever laughed while your soul was bleeding, know this: you're not weak. You're not broken. You've been under siege. And the fact that you're still standing, that's nothing short of a miracle. Scripture says it straight: we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Ephesians 6. True Walla, that verse isn't poetry, it's a field report. Because what you faced wasn't just manipulation. It was a parasite, wearing a smile. It wasn't love. It wasn't care. It was an entity that sought to hollow you out. And don't be fooled. Evil doesn't wear a name tag. It doesn't care about gender or style. It can walk in wearing a tailored suit or a gentle grin. But its fruit is always the same: confusion, exhaustion, and that quiet sense of dying on the inside. The narcissist doesn't hold you with hands. They hold you with fear, with fog, with false hope. You'll sit at breakfast, sipping coffee, and wonder why your chest feels like it's collapsing. That's not anxiety. It's your spirit reacting to poison. And when you finally try to leave, that's when the invisible ropes show themselves. Not tied to wrists, but to memories, to guilt, to the lies you believed. You'll stand by the door trembling, and something deep inside will whisper, "Stay." Not because you want to, because you're chained. But here's what I need you to hear: those chains aren't eternal. What you've been through isn't just psychological. It's spiritual. And healing isn't just about therapy, though therapy helps. It's about reclaiming what was stolen. It's about remembering that the light in you can never be extinguished, only hidden. And maybe this next part will sound strange to some. But if you've lived this, I promise it'll strike something deep in you. One day, a stranger left a comment. Just a simple sentence. They mentioned a phrase I'd never heard: solace being. Something about that cracked open a door in my spirit. It sounded wild, like something from a movie. But the deeper I went, the more the pieces fit. Friend, what I'm about to say might rattle the walls of your comfort. But the truth, don't ask for permission before it speaks. There was a man, long before our time, named Rudolf Steiner. He didn't preach fire and brimstone. He whispered of shadows dressed in flesh, said some folks walk among us with no light behind the eyes. No soul. Just a hollow shape wearing skin like a borrowed coat. Now, when I first read that, I thought, what kind of madness is this? But then I remembered that stare. You know the one, the narcissist's eyes, cold, blank, practiced. And it hit me. Maybe this ain't madness. Maybe this is revelation. I stumbled across a document once, buried on some forgotten corner of the internet. It was called Organic Portals, Piercing the Veil of Reality, written by someone whose name slipped past my tongue like wind through leaves. But oh, the words. The words roared. There was a quote in there that slammed into my chest like thunder from heaven. A considerable percentage of the people we meet on the street are people who are empty inside. That is, they're actually already dead. It is fortunate for us that we do not see and we do not know it. If we knew what a number of people are actually dead, and what a number of these dead people govern our lives, we should go mad with horror. And right there, the narcissist. Alive in form but dead in essence. They move, they smile, they mimic love like a marionette mimics grace. But the soul, long gone. It ain't there. Just a hollow echo, dressed in charm. And if that's all it was, emptiness, we could grieve and move on. But here's the deeper horror: that vessel isn't empty. It's occupied. Not by innocence, but by something ancient, something cunning, and it doesn't sit quietly, it hunts. You think the narcissist just hurts feelings. Oh no, friend. They don't come to bruise. They come to erase. To reach into your soul and twist it until it forgets its own light. This ain't just psychological torment. This is spiritual sabotage. This is the slow assassination of your spirit. And let me say it plain, they know. The narcissist isn't stumbling around in the dark. They know exactly where to poke, where to pierce, where to plant the seed of doubt. And they enjoy the harvest. That's not clumsiness. That's cruelty with a smile. They remember that haunting whisper from The Shining, red rum, that backward cry for murder. That's the same chill you feel in the presence of the narcissist. But the blade isn't in their hand. It's in their energy, their words, their silence, their look. And what they kill, it's not your body. It's your joy, your peace, your sacred sense of self. I've seen the fallout. Souls stumbling out of those relationships like war survivors. Glowing spirits dimmed to flickers. Hospital beds, panic attacks, nightmares, and yet the world calls it just a breakup, just a rough patch. But those of us who've lived it, we know better. This ain't heartbreak, it's spiritual homicide. Now let me take you even deeper. Sri Aurobindo, a mystic thinker from another land, once said, "There are some human beings who are like vampires." What are they and why are they like that? And the answer is as chilling as it is true: they ain't human. Not in the way you and I understand humanity. They've got skin and laughter and maybe even children. But their origin, it ain't rooted in love. It ain't rooted in suffering or redemption. It's something else entirely. These things, because that's what they are, never wanted to walk this earth with pain in their bones and hearts that break. That's too heavy. So they linger just behind the veil, and they reach out. They whisper into willing minds. They crawl into wounded hearts. And the narcissist, that's their perfect disguise. They get a body, a voice, a personality. But inside is something cold and old and hungry. And how do they come in? Not with fire and thunder. No, they come like fog. Soft, seductive. They touch your atmosphere, your spirit. And before long, they've taken up residence. Not beside the soul, but instead of it. That's how the narcissist can look like someone you loved. Like the one who held your hand. Who knew your secrets. And yet, somehow, be the very thing trying to drag your soul into darkness. And this, friend, is where we leave the psychology books on the shelf. Because no therapist, no medication, no diagnosis can fully touch what this is. This is a war not of the mind, but of the spirit. So hear me. If you want to survive this, you have to change the lens. You can't keep looking at the narcissist like they're someone who just needs a little love. You can't keep telling yourself they'll change if you just hold on longer. That's the trap. That's the chain. This isn't a broken soul. This is a predator with a human face. And I don't say that to scare you. I say it to set you free. Let me tell you something you already know deep down, but maybe no one's ever said it to you straight. The eyes lie. The smile lies. The hand that holds yours. The laughter echoing down the hallway. It can all be a mirage. And when you've danced with the narcissist, you know that what you see is not what you're dealing with. There's a paradox the soul picks up long before the brain catches on. Everything looks right on the outside, but inside, There's a storm, a war, a creature behind the curtain, pulling the strings of a performance designed to feed. And the narcissist, that's not just a person, it's a portal being used by something ancient, something starving. Because the narcissist doesn't just lie and manipulate. Oh no, friend, the narcissist feeds. And not metaphorically. This is no poetic flourish. This is spiritual physics. They feed on you. On your light, your laughter, your love. On the essence of who you are. They don't sip tea. They sip your soul. I've lived it. I've stared into the eyes of someone I thought loved me, and what stared back wasn't love. It was hunger. And when the supply ran dry, that's when the mask cracked. That's when the coldness hit like a wind out of nowhere. No anger, no grief. Just nothing. Just a void that looks like a person. See, the beginning is the bait. It's the trap dressed in charm. The narcissist mimics what you dream of. They paint the perfect picture, then hand you the brush and say, "Paint me into your life." And you do. You give them your time, your trust, your tenderness. But what they gave you, it was never real. It was a performance, a projection, a costume made from the scraps of your desire. And the moment you stop feeding that thing, when you say no, when you pull back, it turns, not with fists but with force, with silence, with disdain, with the kind of emptiness that makes your skin crawl, not because it's loud, but because it isn't. I read something once that felt like a lightning strike in my soul. It said, "They draw upon the life force of human beings. Like they attack and capture vital power wherever they can get it. If they enter your atmosphere, you suddenly feel depressed and exhausted. If you stay near them, you get sick. If you live with them, it might kill you." Tell me that doesn't echo the edge you've carried. Tell me that doesn't explain the silent panic, the breathless anxiety, the feeling like your spirit is being siphoned out of your chest. But here's the kicker, most of us knew. Somewhere inside, we felt the wrongness, the drained, but we didn't want to believe it. We blamed ourselves, called it stress, called it love. Told ourselves, if I just hold on a little longer, it'll go back to the beginning. But that dreaming, it was bait. And you can't heal what was never real. I remember. God, I remember the warnings. Friends who saw what I couldn't, they tried to reach me, tried to break the trance. But when you're under the spell of the narcissist, it's like being caught in a velvet cage. No bars, just illusion, but still, you can't leave, not with logic, not with begging. Those chains are spiritual, they're made of false hope, of self-doubt, of invisible threads that whisper, "Stay." But freedom begins when you wake up, and I woke up in fragments. The fog didn't lift all at once, but when it did, when I finally saw it for what it was, I didn't just see a narcissist. I saw the whole network, the darkness behind the mask, the ancient forces that had been working through that vessel to extinguish the flame in me. It wasn't just an argument. It wasn't just a bad relationship. It was war. Strategic, sinister. And the way I got out? Distance. I ran like my soul was on fire, because it was. I fled like Lot from the crumbling ashes of Sodom, and I didn't look back. I got on a plane, I crossed an ocean, and in the air for the first time in months I felt it, relief. The fog began to fade, my spirit stirred like a flame finally catching breath, and I saw it all. Saw how I'd been wrapped up in a spell, not of fantasy, but of survival. There's a reason we say, you can't see the mountain when you're climbing it. But when you soar above it, when you get far enough away, you see the cracks, the cliffs, the traps, and you see the enemy for what it truly was. And this, beloved friend, is what I plead with you now. Don't just walk away. Run, not just with your feet, but with your spirit. Flee to higher ground. Because only when your soul is safe can your healing truly begin. Because this wasn't just emotional abuse. This wasn't just trauma. This was soul theft. And it leaves people not just wounded, but hollow. People break down. People crash. People crumble in ways the world can't explain. And it's not because they're weak. It's because they walked through a war zone they never even saw. This ain't a love story gone wrong. This is spiritual parasitism. And the cure? It's not found in a book. It's not hidden in a therapist's drawer. It's found in clarity, in distance, and in divine intervention. Send the next part when you're ready. I'm standing with you. You ever stop and ask yourself, why did it all happen so fast? Why did that sweet flood of affection, that whirlwind of romance, pull you in like a riptide, and have you living under the same roof before your heart even caught its breath? I'll tell you why. That wasn't love. That was a setup, a spiritual trap dressed in roses and candlelight, a seduction scripted by darkness itself. See the ones who carry light. The soft souls, the truth speakers, the healers, the empaths, those with hearts too open for this world, they shine, and that shine, it attracts things, not just people. Forces. The narcissist doesn't stumble into your life. They're drawn to it, like iron to a magnet. But they don't want to admire your light. They want to consume it. Looking back, I see it all so clearly now, the way it moved like lightning, the flattery, the overwhelming attention. The talk of forever, why wait? It felt magical, didn't it? Felt like fate. Like the stars finally aligned. But what it really was access. Because once you're close, once you're nestled in their world, under their roof, tangled in their energy, they've got you. And now they can feed. Yes, I said it. Feed. I don't mean figuratively. I'm not being poetic. I'm talking real, spiritual consumption. The narcissist is a channel. Some knowingly, some blindly. For something ancient that thrives on light. And if you've got light, if you radiate hope and kindness and purpose, they want you now. They'll call it love, destiny, divine timing. But their goal is not union. It's possession. I can't count how many times I've heard it. I don't know why we moved in so fast. I don't normally do that. It felt too good to be true. And it was. That rush you felt. That wasn't passion. It was a Trojan horse. See, healthy love breathes. It honors time. It respects your rhythm. It doesn't bulldoze your boundaries. But the narcissist, they don't want love. They want control. They want your spirit wrapped around their fingers like thread. This is where the old mystics had it right. Aurobindo said, life is a play of hidden forces, and most of us, we walk into these spiritual war zones with no armor, no awareness, no clue. But scripture never kept it a secret. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, principalities, powers, and spiritual wickedness in high places. That's not just ink on parchment. That's a field manual. That's a diagnosis for what some of you have survived with barely your breath intact. Now don't get me wrong, not every narcissist is fully possessed. Some are just fractured, empty, echoing pain that was never healed. But then there are others. And when you meet one of them, you feel it in your stomach, in your dreams, in the strange fatigue that hits like a curtain falling over your soul. Because these aren't just toxic people, they are vessels. They don't just hurt, they hunt, they dismantle joy. They twist purpose, they make you question your own sanity, while smiling. And listen, what you saw, what you felt, that confusion, that strange sense of dread that had no explanation. It was real. This is not a ghost story. This is not fiction. This is ancient spiritual warfare. And it's been raging since before we had names for good and evil. But here's the good news, you're still standing. You came through. That means darkness didn't win. And that's why I speak. Because the narcissist works best in secret, in shame, in your silence. But the moment you speak, the moment you name what it is, that's when the chains start cracking. That's when the fog begins to lift. That's why your voice matters. That's why your story matters. Because one voice, maybe it gets brushed aside. But 1,000 voices, 1,000,000, that's a chorus. Sound no darkness can drown. You're here, you survived. And now, friend, it's your turn to shine. Not just for you, but for the ones still caught in the spell. For the ones still wondering if they're going mad. For the ones who need to hear someone else say, you're not crazy. It was real. And you're not alone.